We need to destroy everything.
We had no idea what we were capable of. It was time for us to change things.
I wonder, how did narrating the Testament's audiobook deepen your understanding of Aunt Lydia and perhaps influence how you played her in this series?
That's a lovely question. I was very thrilled to do the audiobook. I had never done one. And I was really touched by how powerful it is when you're going to read it and come to understand it. And especially Margaret Atwood's writing, which is beautiful. And there's no such thing as a short sentence that I can remember. So breathing properly, everything helped to determine who was Lydia in the Testaments. And I think you're right. Doing the audiobook was very powerful and helpful.
Willa from One Battle and Agnes Hannah are both like very different, obviously, but they're both like young revolutionaries in the making. I wonder if you thought about Willa at all while filming this series, and how, if at all, she helped you prepare, how she helped you play Hannah.
I think she subconsciously prepared me for playing Hannah. I mean, they could not be more different in terms of upbringing and the situations that they go through. But I think that once we started filming the Testaments, Willa was kind of always in the back of my mind, because I just, again, like, I fell in love with her strength and her courage as a person. So those are things that I kind of had in my back pocket going forward to playing, I almost said Agnes. I was trying to say Hannah and Agnes, and my brain said Agnes. I'm gonna pretend that didn't happen. But definitely, like, Willow is definitely in my back pocket, and those attributes of her really, I think, help me like feel comfortable and feel confident while playing her as well. So I just feel grateful that I get to play two revolutionaries in a sense.
What does Agnes know about June Osborne by the time the series begins?
By the time the series begins, she knows that June Osborne was a rebel handmaid, and kind of it's just at that. And she's this horrible person who's caused mass destruction, and there's never been a perspective of that story that has not had June as the enemy. And so that's her perspective of who June Osborne is at the start of this show.
Yeah. And what is both of their relationships to Aunt Lydia? Because she's so much less threatening to these girls specifically in this show than she ever was to the handmaids in Handmaid's Tale. You can see how much care she has for them. Yeah. Do they trust Aunt Lydia, both of them?
I don't think Daisy does. I think Daisy is acutely aware that there's, something bubbling beneath Aunt Lydia's facade, and she doesn't really know what's going on with Aunt Lydia. I love that. But she knows there's something, and I don't think she's gonna trust her fully.
I think that Agnes trusts her guidance and her knowledge. I'm not sure how much Agnes trusts her as an individual, but she trusts her knowledge and her guidance more than anything. And also, she very much so respects Aunt Lydia and for what she's created as well, is what I would say.
Yeah. Do you think that Becca and Shuna might trust Aunt Lydia perhaps more than the other aunts?
I think she's we do fear her, like she's a feared figure, kind of like how, you're supposed to fear God. She's like an instrument of God, so therefore we fear her. But I think she also is someone that we look up to in terms of how she presents her, at least for Shunammite. I feel like her womanhood and her etiquette is something that she aspires to.
Yeah, I mean, we even have like an entire statue of Aunt Lydia that we're greeted with when we walk into the school. So she's kind of like this divine being that we're supposed to just look up to and want to resemble and emulate in that sort of a fashion.
And of course, we do have Elisabeth Moss back as June Osborne, which is very exciting. Did you both get to talk with Elisabeth on set? I know she's also an executive producer on the show, about character development for Agnes and Daisy, and what did those conversations look like, if so?
I feel like she really was very, very gracious in letting us create our own characters and giving us the permission and the space to play with them, and kind of embrace the fact that this is a new story in Gilead. But she didn't necessarily give us like a specific piece of advice, but just having her support and having her blessing in a sense, that was the best piece of advice that I believe that we could have gotten in that way.
No, I completely agree. I think her reassurance and her space that she provided for us to step into these characters and to step into this world essentially shaped what you see on screen because she afforded us that.
Mm.
But, you know, I was very fortunate to share the screen with her, and I think that was invaluable for me because I just remember watching her because she knows everything about this world and everything about Gilead, and I found that so admirable, and I was very inspired by that, and I know that we tried everything that we could to be as prepared as we could stepping into this world. And the more I worked with her, the more I realized just how important it is to continue having that outlook and work ethic, and that you should constantly be acquiring information, because I think in a way that is your role as an actor, is to be an information gatherer, and she really enforced that as well.
What do these girls know about June Osborne at the start of the series?
Oh,
Nothing.
I don't think
Nothing.
anything. I think if there's any knowledge, it's that one handmaid, maybe.
Yeah,
but I don't think that we know
anything about her.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I don't think we know anything.
Do you think the girls are kind of like, they're not taught the recent history of like of the war that's going on?
Oh, no,
Definitely
no.
not.
It would, and if they were taught it, if we are taught parts of it, we're just taught that, you know, Mayday and anybody who opposes what we're here to do, which is become wives and serve God, is an antagonist. So there's very little like empathy taught, you know?
Yeah. And if we were to know about anything of that sort, it could result in rebellious behavior. So anything to like get away from that is what they're aiming for.
I imagine that the rage that they're all asked to unleash when they're like punishing these criminals is pretty cathartic for them because they have to repress so much emotion. But what is the come down like for them after that? Like in private moments, how does taking part in this violence make them feel?
I think it's the only time where they are like allowed to have some sort of dominance over the men. You know, like when we were shooting that scene, I can't remember what episode is it. Is it the first one?
Where his hand is?
Yeah.
First.
Yeah, whenever it is, it felt like it was the, you know, we're not taught to look in the eye of these men. Like we're supposed to look away from the men. The men are just supposed to maybe one day save us and let us marry them. So when we get to do kind of like this ritualistic punishment, it's the only time where we're allowed to express any sort of feeling, really. And I think the come down probably is satisfying.
Yeah, super satisfying, because we're finally able to externalize so many emotions that we've had to suppress, whether that's your own individual struggles that maybe you're finally just letting come to light, but, you know, hidden underneath this. But we are told that men that act in that fashion are so evil. So it's like relieving to go through that experience.
It's so fascinating to me that the wives of Gilead could be ashamed of children of handmaids when it's like, you guys set this system up, you know? Can you give a sense of the shame that the Gilead wives feel about these children that they were so desperate to have? Like, why do they feel that way?
I mean, I think that isn't that like let's sort of based off like the Catholic shame. I'm not dissing Catholicism, but the original sin, right, of being born in general is just like there was an original sin of like being born. But I think that like you know, for the women in this, you know, they don't have. I can only speak to the wives and what my character Paula is going through is that, you know, there's also a great insecurity that like happens with any sort of fertility, you know, something that also like happens in the real world too, is this insecurity of like that we don't often talk about, of like if you can or you can't have a child, and sort of like all of the rush of emotions that come with that. And I think like when you talk about the rules of Gilead, you know, there's a lot of warped things that happen. There's a lot of warped rules that they're following, and a lot of things that like there is no place for those emotions to go. And so therefore they take them out on the children of Gilead. And because it's something that they feel like they weren't able to do. And to me, it's this deep insecurity that they couldn't. And so they're, you know, feeling the weight of the construct of Gilead within those walls.